Before we had the likes of the Galaxy-class Starship flying around the galaxy, humanity in the Star Trek universe had to start somewhere with interstellar travel. One of the key projects towards human space exploration into the final frontier was the NX project, also known as the NX test program. This was Starfleet's effort to develop a brand new starship which would use the engine designed by the Warp 5 program. This was a pivotal program in the history of humanity. It would lead to Earth becoming an interstellar power, as well as the founding of the United Federation of Planets. Prior to the NX project, human starships were incapable of exceeding Warp 2. Today, in our Star Trek Lore Explained, we'll explore how humanity completed the NX project, which culminated in the launch of the NX-01 Enterprise. Let's go. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host, Captain Jack, and let's get into it. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then hit that subscribe button for the latest from the Star Trek universe. While you're here, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Oh, and you can join our Discord server. If you feel like supporting the channel, hit that join button to access our private chat channels to help make future videos, and chat with the crew and me. Okay, engage. Before Starfleet began real, proper exploration of space, the Earth cargo service was humanity's only real presence in outer space. These ships were typically limited to speeds of under Warp 2. The crews of these cargo vessels would spend years travelling from one planet to another. The first generation of humans born into outer space were born on these cargo ships and would become known as boomers. Travis Mayweather, who would go on to serve on board the NX-01 Enterprise, was a boomer. He was born on board the ECS Horizon, a J-class freighter, during the year of 2126. The NX project began to allow humanity's knowledge to expand and adequately continue space exploration. Before we dive into that, we must get the background of how this project came to be. Let's look at the Warp 5 program. Of course, the story of humanity's Warp program development begins with a Phoenix. During the 2060s, Dr. Zephram Cochrane and his team of engineers began developing the warp drive. The challenge of inventing warp theory took Cochrane an extremely long time. By April 2063, Cochrane had planned to pilot the Phoenix, Earth's first warp ship, on a test warp flight. Unfortunately, the Phoenix launch site was attacked by a Borg sphere, which had come back in time to try and disrupt humanity's future. Thankfully, the crew of the USS Enterprise E arrived and dealt with the Borg sphere. While the Enterprise E dealt with being boarded by Borg drones and the Borg Queen, Commander Riker and his away team helped Dr. Cochrane launch the Phoenix as scheduled. It took some convincing, but eventually on April 5th, 2063, Cochrane was ready to make the trip. The Phoenix was launched, with Enterprise E's Commander Riker and Lieutenant Commander Jordan LaForge accompanying Dr. Cochrane as his flight assistants. The warp barrier was broken by Cochrane and the Phoenix just after 11 AM. This was enough to draw the attention of a Vulcan survey ship, the Diplana Half, which was passing near Earth. That evening, Dr. Cochrane was among many human spectators who watched the Vulcan ship land in Bozeman, Montana, making first contact with humanity. During the early 22nd century, Cochrane would design a new style of warp reactor that was fitted aboard the J-class freighters. There was a rumour that the Doctor personally signed the inside of each reactor casing, though that was not proved by the 2150s, at least. The United Earth Space Probe Agency commissioned the development project known as the Warp 5 program. This was an effort to develop the Warp 5 engine. Some of the key scientists working on this project including Doctors Zephram Cochrane, Henry Archer, and Tazaki. Much of the work these scientists did took place at the Warp 5 complex, located on Earth just outside of Bozeman, Montana from 2119 onward. While progress was made, the project did see setbacks. For starters, it was overseen by the Vulcans, who were somewhat aiding humanity in their work. Though, as some might know, the Vulcans were very cautious, and some individuals saw the species as holding humanity back. The Vulcans feared that the humans were rushing into things too quickly. Dr. Archer would work closely with Dr. Cochrane to develop the Warp 5 engine, as part of the NX program. Archer was responsible for some key breakthroughs, including for a derivation of the flux paradox, which is more accurate than the one used by his Vulcan mentors. This breakthrough was a culmination of years of frustration with the Vulcans. Prior to 2119, Dr. Archer would take his son, Jonathan Archer, on a tour of the Warp 5 complex. The same year that the Warp 5 complex had its dedication ceremony, Dr. Zephram Cochrane would disappear. Unfortunately, Dr. Henry Archer would die in 2124 before the Warp 5 engine could be constructed. The Vulcans held back the engine development program. This stalled humanity's progress and resulted in Jonathan Archer's resentment towards the Vulcans. This resentment would grow into a grudge, which Jonathan held until the 2150s. By the early 2140s, the NX project was in operation. We don't have a precise date on the actual foundation of the project, but it likely followed significant work on the Warp 5 program. By this time, Starfleet had been established. Commodore Maxwell Forrest oversaw the NX project from its earliest stages in the 2140s. During these years, the project had fielded several test vehicles, with prototype versions of the Warp 5 engine. The prototypes were piloted by a series of test pilots, including commanders Jonathan Archer, A.G. Robinson, Gardner, and Duval. At least one engineering team was overseeing the NX program, headed by Captain Jeffries. Lieutenant Charles Tucker III was assigned to work on Jeffries' engineering team. The NX program saw initial progress on speeds below Warp 2. However, the project would stall sometime prior to 2143. The test flight of the NX Alpha, led by Commander Robinson, ended in a disaster following an explosion after the ship's engines were pushed ever so slightly beyond Warp 2. Once again, Vulcans thought humanity was pushing forward too fast. As such, the Vulcan Advisory Council recommended the NX project be suspended, which it was. Due to this decision, Lieutenant Tucker and Commander Archer believed the designs of a prototype Warp 5 engine to be sound. During research, Tucker's analysis of the engine's intermix ratio of the fuel flowing through the antimatter injectors proved to be the root of the problem. This time, corrections were made to the NX Beta. The Beta was illegally piloted by Commanders Archer and Robinson, which resulted in a successful test flight. While breaking direct orders, the success of the NX Beta effectively confirmed the utility of the Warp 5 engine. Still, the Vulcans would require over a year of additional ground-based simulations following the flight. Around 8 months after the flight of the NX Beta, Duval would break the Warp 3 barrier using the NX Delta. The rapid success of the NX project would lead to many advancements within Starfleet and the program. For example, new starships were produced, including one which would eventually be named the USS Franklin, the first starship to achieve Warp 4. In 2149, the project saw the keel of the Enterprise NX-01 being laid. This would be the first generation of Warp 5 starships for Starfleet and the United Earth. In April 2151, the NX-01 Enterprise became the culmination of the NX project, as she was finally launched above Earth. By this time, Forrest had been promoted to Admiral and selected Jonathan Archer to be promoted to Captain and placed in command of the NX-01 Enterprise. While the Vulcans did object, as they felt Captain Gardner would make a better choice, the decision was ultimately Forrest's to make. By the time of the NX-01 launch, another 3 vessels of the NX class were on the drawing board. We know the NX-02 Columbia was finally launched in November 2154, becoming the second of the NX class to be launched. The NX program played a large role in Starfleet's interstellar exploration, and Admiral Forrest remained in charge of overseeing its operations. In 2154, Forrest was killed in a bombing on Vulcan, while saving the life of Vulcan Ambassador Saval. The NX program was then placed under the command of newly promoted Admiral Gardner. It's not quite clear if the NX project remained active after Enterprise and the other NX-class vessels were launched. It might have been absorbed into the operations of Starfleet as they took command of the vessels and sent them on missions. With the successful launch of the Enterprise and Columbia, as well as plans for the NX-03 and the NX-04, there will be no further need for the NX project anymore. It had succeeded. It's also not entirely clear in the Star Trek canon how the USS Franklin connects with the NX project. Given that it is Earth's first Warp 4 vessel, it would likely have to have been born out of the NX project's experiments with the warp engine designs and tests. We've recently covered the history of the USS Franklin here on the channel. Check out that video, linked below. In Star Trek's extended media, the Enterprise novels, Kobayashi Maru and Beneath the Raptor's Wing, tell the stories that follow the series of Star Trek Enterprise. During those novels, we learn of 4 additional NX-class ships, the NX-03 Challenger, NX-04 Discovery, NX-05 Atlantis, and NX-06 Endeavour were commissioned and launched before Starfleet shut down the NX program, in favour of the Daedalus class of starship. The Daedalus class was considered to be constructed faster and cheaper. We've previously produced a video here on the Trek Central YouTube channel, which has explored the history of the NX class and the story of each starship launched. If you're interested in checking that out, as it's an excellent deep dive into the NX class line of ships, then please see that video linked below. So that's the history of Starfleet's NX project. It would be fantastic in the future, as new Star Trek shows are being made, if there were some precise dates for the project. However, without more shows being made in the Enterprise era of the Star Trek universe, that might not happen for some time. Like always, if you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends.